The Analects is one of the classic works of ancient Chinese Confucianism, compiled by the disciples of Confucius and his disciples' disciples. It is one of the most important representatives of Confucianism and an important legacy of Chinese culture. The Analects Translation and Commentary is a book of commentaries and translations of the Analects. It contains the introduction, original text, commentary, and translation of each chapter of the Analects. The introduction introduces the background and main contents of the chapter, the original text is the original Chinese characters of the chapter, the commentary is the explanation and supplementary explanation of the original text, and the translation is the translation of the original text into modern Chinese. The editor of the Analects is a Chinese scholar, Mr. Zou Yun. In his commentary and translation of the Analects, he blends the views of traditional scholars with the research findings of modern scholars, making the book meet the reading needs of general readers as well as the research needs of academic researchers. The special feature of the Analects is that it retains the cultural connotation and essence of the original text while enabling readers to better understand and appreciate the ideas and values in the Analects. It is of great value for learning about ancient Chinese culture and thought, and for understanding traditional Chinese culture. The main ideas and values in the Analects. The Analects emphasizes the importance of ethics and morality and interpersonal relationships, the most important ideas of which include 1. Ren. Ren is one of the most important core values in Confucianism, emphasizing care and respect between people, an understanding of human nature and care for people. 2. Filial piety. Filial piety emphasizes the respect and filial obedience to parents, and is a very important value in Chinese culture. 3. Etiquette. Etiquette is a code of conduct and a social norm that emphasizes respect and importance to others, a cultural heritage and a manifestation of cultural self-identity. 4. Faith. Faith emphasizes the importance of consistency between words and actions and keeping promises, and is a moral and ethical foundation. 5. Righteousness. Righteousness is a moral concept that emphasizes the pursuit of righteousness and a sense of responsibility to society. The Book of Learning is the first chapter in the Analects and one of the most representative chapters in the Analects. It focuses on learning and cultivation, describing and commenting on the words and actions of Confucius and his disciples, and expounding on Confucian ideas and values regarding education, ethics, and politics. Volume I. The Book of Learning contains a chapter called the Book of Learning, which is divided into 15 sections. The following is a brief description of the content of each section of the Book of Learning. The first section of Shui Er. 1. Confucius said, "Learn and study at the right time," emphasizing the importance of learning. 2. Confucius said, "It is not a matter of not having a position, but a matter of being established," emphasizing the importance of being established. 3. Confucius said, "If you have friends from afar, are you not also happy?" This is a statement that emphasizes the importance of friendship and interpersonal relationships. 4. Confucius said, "When 3 people walk, there must be a teacher for me," emphasizing the importance of learning from people and things around us. 5. Confucius said, "A gentleman is not a tool," emphasizing that a gentleman should pursue moral and character cultivation rather than material pursuits. 6. Confucius said, "A gentleman is circumspect but not comparative, but a lesser man is comparative but not circumspect," emphasizing that a gentleman should have a holistic view and wisdom. 7. Confucius said, "To learn without thinking is to be reckless, to think without learning is to be dangerous," emphasizing the interplay of learning and thinking. 8. Confucius said, "If you attack heretics, you will harm yourself," emphasizing the resistance to and reflection on heretical ideas. 9. Confucius says, "A gentleman seeks his own self, but a small man seeks others." He emphasizes that a gentleman should be self-centered rather than other-centered. 10. Confucius said, "When you see a good man, think of him, and when you see a bad man, think of yourself." 11. Confucius said, "A gentleman seeks the way, not food, and cultivation, not wealth," emphasizing that a gentleman should aim at moral and character cultivation rather than material pursuits. 12. Confucius said, "A gentleman is a metaphor for righteousness, but a villain is a metaphor for profit," emphasizing that a gentleman should emphasize morality and righteousness rather than personal gain. 13. Confucius said, "A gentleman should pursue goodness and virtue rather than evil," emphasizing that a gentleman should pursue goodness and virtue rather than fall into bad behavior. 14. Confucius said, "A gentleman should be careful with his words and his actions," emphasizing that a gentleman should be careful with his words and actions and observe moral norms. 15. Confucius said, "A gentleman is harmonious but different, but a small man is uncoordinated," emphasizing that a gentleman should be tolerant and harmonious, able to get along with different people and reach consensus. The Book of Shui'er emphasizes the importance of learning, cultivation, interpersonal relationships, virtue, and reflection, and has had a profound impact on Confucianism and traditional Chinese culture. The chapter Shui'er in Volume 1 of the Analects of Confucius provides an in-depth reading and interpretation of Shui'er, which is extremely helpful for readers to gain a deeper understanding of Confucianism and traditional Chinese culture. The second chapter of the Book of Weisheng is a chapter in the Analects that records Confucius' requirements for the competence and virtue of leaders, as well as his views on the political system and social order. In this chapter, Confucius emphasizes the importance of the competence and moral character of leaders to the political system and social order. He proposed the metaphor of to be virtuous in government is like the North Star, where all the stars are in common, that is, a leader should lead and influence the people with virtue, just like the North Star, firmly in his place, leading all the stars to move together. He also put forward the principle of the people can be made to know, but not to be made to know, that is, leaders should consider the interests and needs of the people, in order to meet their needs as much as possible, instead of just pursuing their own power and interests. In his view of the political system and social order, Confucius proposed that without trust the people cannot stand, without faith the state cannot keep, that is, the stability and development of society and the political system need to be based on trust and honesty. He believed that leaders should build a good relationship of trust on the basis of trust, and at the same time focus on social justice and stability in order to protect the interests and rights of the people. He also proposed that harmony is the key to propriety, that is, leaders should focus on harmony and coordination and establish good interpersonal relationships in order to achieve social harmony and stability. In terms of the requirements for the competence and quality of leaders, Confucius proposed that a gentleman should be concerned with righteousness, while a small man should be concerned with profit, that is, leaders should be concerned with righteousness and fairness, not just their own selfish interests and power. He also proposed that a gentleman is not a tool, that is, a leader should not only focus on personal talents and abilities, but also on moral qualities and charisma. Confucius believed that only with a high moral character and moral code could one win the trust and support of the people and establish a stable and harmonious political system. The second book of the government records Confucius' requirements for the competence and moral character of leaders, as well as his views on the political system and social order. These ideas have had a profound influence on the development of Chinese culture and Confucianism, and still have great significance and value in modern society. Volume 3 The Eight Dancers is a chapter in the Analects of Confucius, which contains only one of the 8 dancers from the Analects of Confucius. The Eight Dancers is a short chapter of 14 paragraphs, which mainly deals with Confucius' views on music and dance. In the 8 dances, Confucius believes that music and dance are important components of culture, which can stimulate people's feelings and emotions and help cultivate their moral character and cultivation. For example, Confucius believed that temple music was the most sublime music, which could express people's respect and gratitude to their ancestors. He also believed that miscellaneous songs could express people's sorrow and pain, which could help to vent their emotions and relieve stress. In addition, there is an interesting story mentioned in the 8 dances that Confucius' disciple Zou questioned Confucius' taste in music, to which Confucius replied, "A gentleman is good at the beginning, while a small man is good at the end." Confucius replied, "A gentleman is good at the beginning, but a villain is good at the end." This means that a gentleman focuses on quality and style at the beginning of something, while a villain only thinks about these issues at the end, so a gentleman's taste is trustworthy. Although the 8 dances is only a short piece, the ideas and values contained in it had a profound impact on the development of music and dance arts in ancient China. In ancient China, music and dance were important means of cultural transmission and social interaction, and Confucius' views and evaluations of music and dance not only influenced the development of culture and art at the time, but also became an important component of traditional Chinese culture. It reflects Confucius' views and evaluations of music and dance, emphasizing the importance of culture and art to personal cultivation and social harmony. Through a deeper understanding and interpretation of this short piece, we can better grasp the core values of traditional Chinese culture and Confucianism, and exert their positive influence in modern society. Volume 4, Li Ren, is a chapter in the Analects of Confucius, which contains the Li Ren chapter of the Analects of Confucius. It expounds Confucius' thoughts on the relationship between benevolence and ritual, and the way people should get along with each other. In Li Ren, Confucius emphasizes the importance of benevolence as the foundation and core of interpersonal relationship. He believes that only with the quality of benevolence can one truly realize the interdependence and mutual care between human beings. Confucius also pointed out that ritual is one of the important ways to realize benevolence, and that ritual is the embodiment of social norms and ethics, which can help people respect and understand each other, thus realizing harmonious coexistence. In addition, Li Ren also explains Confucius' views on personal cultivation and social harmony. Confucius believed that personal cultivation is the basis for the realization of benevolence, and that only with the quality of self-restraint and self-cultivation can one truly care for others and society. Confucius also put forward the principle of do unto others as you would have them do unto you, emphasizing the importance of setting a good example by one's own behavior and influencing others. It reflects Confucius' views on benevolence and ritual, and explains the importance of personal cultivation and social harmony. Through an in-depth understanding and interpretation of this chapter, we can better grasp the core values of traditional Chinese culture and Confucianism, and exert their positive influence in modern society. Volume 5 Gong Gai Chong is a chapter in the Analects of Confucius, which contains a chapter from the Analects of Confucius, Gong Gai Chong. It expounds Confucius' thoughts on the relationship between righteousness and modesty, and the distinction between the gentleman and the villain. In the long chapter of Gong Gai, Confucius emphasizes the importance of integrity and modesty as qualities that a gentleman should possess. In his view, integrity is the attitude towards things, and one must be honest, prudent, and fair in order to be upright. Modesty is the attitude towards oneself, and one must be humble, modest, and not complacent in order to be modest. Confucius believed that uprightness and modesty are not opposites, but complementary to each other, and only when they exist together can one truly become a gentleman. In addition, Confucius's distinction between a gentleman and a villain is also explained in the Gong Gai Chong Pian. According to Confucius, the difference between a gentleman and a villain lies in the difference in character and behavior. A gentleman possesses the qualities of integrity, modesty, love, and diligence, while a villain lacks these qualities and cares only about his own interests and power, without regard for the feelings and needs of others. Confucius emphasized the importance of the gentleman as the backbone of society, who could lead people to a harmonious and stable society. It reflects Confucius' views on integrity and modesty and emphasizes the difference and importance of the gentleman and the villain. Through an in-depth understanding and interpretation of this chapter, we can better grasp the core values of traditional Chinese culture and Confucianism, and exert their positive influence in modern society. Volume 6 Yan Zhai is a chapter in the Analects of Confucius, which contains two chapters of the Analects of Confucius, Yan Zhai and Yan Zhai Xia. Both of them are important chapters in the Analects, which expound Confucius' views on learning and cultivation, as well as his advice on education and governance. In the Yan Zhai chapter, Confucius believes that learning and cultivation are the basic tasks of human beings, and that only through learning and cultivation can one become a true gentleman. Confucius emphasized the importance of learning by stating the motto to learn and to study at the same time is not only a good idea. Confucius also put forward the principle of when you see a virtuous person, think of him or her, and when you see a person who is not virtuous, think of yourself, saying that you should constantly learn from good people, and constantly reflect and improve on your own behavior. In the Book of Yang Yi, Confucius made recommendations for education and governance. He believed that education should focus on practice and apply the knowledge and skills learned to practical life. Governance should focus on virtue and rule by virtue, cultivating good character and behavior. Confucius also put forward the view that there must be a teacher for all three, that people should learn and borrow from the strengths of others, and reflect them in their own behavior. The Yanjai and Yanjai Xia chapters, which are included in Volume 6, are important chapters in traditional Chinese culture and Confucianism, and they present Confucius' views on learning, cultivation, education, and governance. Through an in-depth understanding and interpretation of these two chapters, we can better grasp the core values of traditional Chinese culture and Confucianism, and exert their positive influence in modern society. Volume 7, Shu Wei is a chapter in the Analects of Confucius, which contains the chapter Shu Wei from the Analects of Confucius. It is an important chapter in the Analects of Confucius, which expounds on Confucius' views on learning and spreading knowledge, as well as on the requirements for a gentleman. In Shu Wei, Confucius emphasizes the importance of learning and spreading knowledge as one of the qualities that a gentleman should possess. He believed that learning and spreading knowledge could help people improve their quality and abilities and help promote the progress and development of society. Confucius also put forward the view that if one has friends from afar, one should be happy to come, and that one should be optimistic and aggressive, constantly learning and borrowing from the outside world. In addition, the Book of Shu Wei also explains Confucius' requirements for a gentleman. Confucius believed that a gentleman should possess the qualities of integrity, modesty, love, and diligence, as well as good ethics and a sense of social responsibility. He also put forward the view that a gentleman is not a tool, believing that the quality and cultivation of a gentleman cannot be measured by tools, but can be manifested by his behavior and words. It reflects Confucius' views on the learning and dissemination of knowledge and the requirements of a gentleman. Through an in-depth understanding and interpretation of this chapter, we can better grasp the core values of traditional Chinese culture and Confucianism, and exert their positive influence in modern society. Volume 8, Tabo is a chapter in the Analects of Confucius, which contains a chapter from the Analects of Confucius, Tabo. Tabo is an important chapter in the Analects, which expounds on Confucius' requirements for a gentleman, as well as his advice on human attitudes and behavior. In Tabo, Confucius emphasizes that a gentleman should possess the qualities of integrity, modesty, courage, and love, and that he should be socially responsible in his behavior. According to Confucius, a gentleman should prioritize integrity, be prudent and not compromise easily, be modest and learn from others with an open mind, be brave and take responsibility, and be compassionate and caring for others and help those in need. In addition, the Book of Tabor also provides advice on the attitude and behavior of people. According to Confucius, one should have a respectful attitude, respect others, and not insult them easily. One should have an attitude of moderation and not indulge one's desires. One should have an honest attitude and not deceive others. One should have an attitude of respect and not despise one's elders and superiors. One should have an attitude of gratitude and treat others with a grateful heart. It reflects Confucius' views on the requirements of a gentleman and his advice on how to behave and conduct oneself. Through an in-depth understanding and interpretation of this chapter, we can better grasp the core values of traditional Chinese culture and Confucianism, and exert their positive influence in modern society. Volume 9, Zou Yun is a chapter in the Analects of Confucius, which contains the chapter Zou Yun from the Analects of Confucius. Zou Yun is an important chapter in the Analects, which presents Confucius' views on education and interpersonal relationships, as well as advice on learning and cultivation. In Zou Yun, Confucius emphasizes the importance of education as an important way to cultivate talents. Confucius also put forward the idea of ruling with virtue, like the North Star, where all the stars are in common, saying that a politician should rule with virtue, like the North Star, which is in its place and leads many stars to converge together. Confucius also put forward the view that if you do not learn poetry, you cannot speak, and that learning poetry is an important way to cultivate people's emotions. In addition, the importance of interpersonal relationships is also discussed in the Book of Zou Yun. Confucius believes that a gentleman should pay attention to interpersonal relationships, know how to get along with others, constantly modify his behavior, and get along with others. Confucius also expressed the idea of do unto others as you would not have them do unto you, and that one should respect the rights and dignity of others and refrain from acts that one does not wish to suffer. It reflects Confucius' views on education, interpersonal relationships, and learning and cultivation. Through an in-depth understanding and interpretation of this chapter, we can better grasp the core values of traditional Chinese culture and Confucianism, and exert their positive influence in modern society. Volume 10, The Hyung Party, is a chapter in the Analects of Confucius, which contains the chapter The Hyung Party from the Analects of Confucius. It is an important chapter in the Analects, which expounds Confucius' views on politics and morality, as well as the requirements for a gentleman. In the book of the Hyung Party, Confucius emphasizes the importance of politics and ethics as the basis for the stability and prosperity of the state and society. He put forward the viewpoints that a gentleman is not inappropriate and not incompetent in the world, but righteousness is in the ratio and the people can be made to understand but not to know, and that a gentleman should give priority to righteousness, not to favor any party, and to safeguard social justice and prevent local forces from. Confucius also put forward the view that a gentleman should put justice first and not take sides. Confucius also put forward such viewpoints as a gentleman does not speak a lot, but his words are reasonable, and a gentleman is not a tool, arguing that a gentleman's quality and cultivation cannot be measured by his tools, but can be realized by his behavior and words. In addition, the book The Country Party also elaborates on the requirements of the qualities and behaviors of a gentleman. According to Confucius, a gentleman should possess the qualities of integrity, modesty, diligence, and love, and should take social responsibility in his behavior and constantly correct his defects and shortcomings. He also put forward the viewpoints of not to worry about the lack of position, but to worry about the reason for the establishment, and the gentleman is a metaphor for righteousness, while the villain is a metaphor for profit, and believed that the gentleman should focus on the cultivation of moral values rather than the pursuit of power and wealth. It reflects Confucius' views on politics, ethics, and morality, and the requirements of a gentleman. Through an in-depth understanding and interpretation of this chapter, we can better grasp the core values of traditional Chinese culture and Confucianism, and exert their positive influence in modern society. Volume 11, Advanced, is a chapter in the Analects of Confucius, which contains the chapter on Advanced in the Analects of Confucius. The Advanced chapter is an important chapter in the Analects of Confucius, which expounds on Confucius' views on learning and cultivation, as well as on the distinction between the advanced and the advanced. In the Advanced chapter, Confucius emphasizes the importance of learning and cultivation as the foundation of human progress. He put forward the viewpoints of there must be a teacher for all three, and those who are close to the vermilion are red, those who are close to the ink are black. He believed that learning should be done with an open mind from others, and that learning and contact with outstanding people can improve one's own cultivation and quality. Confucius also put forward the view that a gentleman should pay attention to the cultivation of cultural literacy and assist others with friendship and benevolence, such as a gentleman meets friends with literature and aids benevolence with friends. In addition, the Advanced chapter also distinguishes the concept of advanced and advanced. According to Confucius, the advanced person is an outstanding person who is superior in learning and moral character and can serve as a role model for others. The latecomers, on the other hand, are those who have not yet reached the level of the pioneers and need to study and cultivate hard. Confucius put forward the viewpoints that one does not need to be without a position, but to be established, and the wise must have faults, but the unwise do not know themselves, and that everyone has his own strengths and weaknesses, and should respect others and constantly correct his own shortcomings and deficiencies. It reflects Confucius' views on learning, cultivation, and the distinction between the advanced and the advanced. Through an in-depth understanding and interpretation of this chapter, we can better grasp the core values of traditional Chinese culture and Confucianism, and exert their positive influence in modern society. Volume 12, Zou Yun, is a chapter in the Analects of Confucius, which contains the chapter of Zou Yun from the Analects of Confucius. It is an important chapter in the Analects, recording Confucius' teaching and evaluation of Zou Yun, as well as his views on learning and cultivation. In Zou Yun, Confucius' teaching and evaluation of Zou Yun are very high. He praised Zou Yun as my friend and said that he was Yuan, meaning that he had profound thoughts and outstanding talents. Confucius taught Zou Yun to seek more blessings, to study hard and cultivate, and to have no regrets in heaven and no subterfuge in others, that is, do not have complaints and dissatisfaction with heaven and others. Confucius also put forward the view that to learn without thinking is reckless, to think without learning is dangerous, and so on, believing that learning and thinking are interrelated, and only when learning and thinking are combined can real progress be made. In addition, Confucius' views on cultivation and interpersonal relationships are also expressed in Zou Yun's book. Confucius believed that cultivation is the foundation of human beings' pursuit of truth, goodness, and beauty, and that only through cultivation can people reach the true state. He put forward such ideas as do not do unto others what you would not have them do unto you, and everything that is done must be done before it is done, believing that one should respect the rights and dignity of others and refrain from acts that one does not wish to suffer. Confucius also put forward the view that in the way of friends, one must examine oneself 3 times, and that one should pay attention to the cultivation of interpersonal relationships and constantly reflect on one's behavior and words to ensure harmony with others. It reflects Confucius' views on learning, cultivation, and interpersonal relationships, as well as his evaluation and teaching of Zou Yun. Through an in-depth understanding and interpretation of this chapter, we can better grasp the core values of traditional Chinese culture and Confucianism, and exert their positive influence in modern society. Volume 13, Zilu is a chapter in the Analects of Confucius, which contains the chapter Zilu from the Analects of Confucius. Zilu is an important chapter in the Analects, recording Confucius' teaching and evaluation of Zilu, as well as his thoughts on learning, cultivation, politics, and ethics. In Zilu, Confucius' teaching and evaluation of Zilu are very high. He praises Zilu as my disciple and says that he is an extraordinary man, meaning that he is exceptional. Confucius taught Zilu to face difficulties before gaining, to be brave in facing difficulties and challenges, and to believe in what you say and act, that is, to act decisively on what you say. Confucius also put forward the viewpoint of aspire to the way, base on virtue, follow benevolence, and travel in the arts, which suggests that one should pay attention to the cultivation of moral cultivation and personality, and learn various skills and knowledge. In addition, Confucius's views on politics and ethics are also presented in the Zilu chapter. Confucius believed that politics was an important activity in the administration of the state and society, and that it must be led and managed by a wise and capable person. He put forward such ideas as a gentleman is not a weapon and a gentleman has 3 fears, saying that a gentleman should be modest and cautious, not boastful and arrogant, and should have respect for heaven and earth, the law and conscience. Confucius also put forward the viewpoints of those who lose it by agreement rarely carry on, and a man who does not have faith does not know what he can do. He believed that one should be trustworthy and must keep promises and agreements, otherwise he will lose the trust and respect of others. It reflects Confucius' views on learning, cultivation, politics, and ethics, as well as his evaluation and teaching of Zilu. Through an in-depth understanding and interpretation of this chapter, we can better grasp the core values of traditional Chinese culture and Confucianism, and exert their positive influence in modern society. The 14th chapter of the Book of Constitutional Questions is a chapter in the Analects, which records Confucius' views on politics and the rule of law. This chapter can be divided into 2 parts. The first part is Confucius' exposition of political philosophy, and the second part is Confucius' evaluation and teaching of the rule of law. In the first part, Confucius puts forward the view that a gentleman should be concerned with the fundamentals, and when the fundamentals are established, the way is born. Confucius also proposed that it is rare to lose one's way by convention, which means that people's behavior should be restrained by rules and regulations to prevent them from acting against the public interest and moral norms. He also suggested that the people cannot be established without trust, that is, when governing a country, one must focus on building trust and integrity in order to establish a stable and harmonious social order. In the second part, Confucius' evaluation and teaching on the rule of law is very important. He believes that law is the basis for governing the state and society, and that it must be done strictly in accordance with the law. At the same time, he also pointed out the limitations of the law, saying that the law can only serve as a restraint, but cannot completely replace the role of morality and conscience. Confucius put forward the view that morality is the root of the state and society, while law is the end, and that morality is the root of the state and society, while law is only an auxiliary part. In the 14th chapter of the Constitution, Confucius also put forward such important points as the sun does not say anything, but the gods are in disarray, and those who have virtue must have words, but those who have words need not have virtue, emphasizing the relationship between language and morality. The relationship between language and morality is emphasized. The 14th chapter of the Book of Constitutional Questions is an important chapter in the Analects, which records Confucius' views on politics and the rule of law, emphasizes the importance of morality and rules, and suggests the relationship between law and morality. These ideological perspectives have had a profound influence on the development of Chinese culture and Confucianism, and continue to have significant meaning and value in modern society. The 15th chapter of Wei Ling Gong is a chapter in the Analects that records Confucius' views on politics and leadership, as well as his teachings on the relationship between monarchs and their subjects. In this chapter, Confucius first criticizes the leadership of Duke Wei linguistics. He argued that Duke Wei trusted his brother too much and neglected other talented and capable people, and that such leadership would lead to political and social instability and chaos. Confucius told Duke Wei that a good political system could only be established by selecting talented and capable people to hold important positions. In terms of teaching the relationship between the monarch and his subjects, Confucius put forward the ideas of a gentleman is not a tool and a gentleman's friendship is as light as water. He believed that a gentleman should have high moral character and conduct, and should not focus on power and profit, but should be concerned about the public interest and the welfare of the people. At the same time, interactions between gentlemen should be indifferent and sincere, rather than close for the sake of personal gain and power. In addition, Confucius offered his own views on the relationship between benevolence and politics. He believed that benevolence and virtue were fundamental to the governance of the state and society, and that only by influencing and moving people through benevolence and virtue could a stable and harmonious social order be established. He emphasized that leaders must consider the interests of the people when exercising power and must not center on their own selfish interests and power. The 15th book of Wei Ling Gong records Confucius' views on politics and leadership, as well as his teachings on the relationship between monarchs and their subjects. These ideas have had a profound influence on the development of Chinese culture and Confucianism and continue to have great significance and value in modern society. The 16th chapter of the Ji is a chapter in the Analects that records Confucius' views on benevolence and family ethics, as well as his teachings on the relationship between students and teachers. In this chapter, Confucius emphasizes the importance of benevolence and virtue as core values. He argues that benevolence and virtue are fundamental to the governance of the state and society, and that only by influencing and moving people through benevolence and virtue can a stable and harmonious social order be established. Confucius also proposed the principle of do not do to others what you do not want them to do to you, that is, do not do what you do not want others to do to you. He believed that this moral code could help people establish good interpersonal relationships and social order. In terms of family ethics, Confucius stated that when parents are here, they should not travel far away from home, and when they travel, they should do their duty of filial piety. He also emphasized the importance of family education, saying that parents should give their children the right moral education to cultivate their moral character and cultivation. At the same time, Confucius also emphasized the importance of filial obedience and respect for the elderly, saying that filial obedience to parents and respect for elders are important values in traditional Chinese culture and Confucianism. In terms of teaching the relationship between students and teachers, Confucius said, "There must be a teacher for all three of us," meaning that everyone can be our teacher in life and we should learn from them with an open mind. He also said, "Be sensitive and learn well, and do not be ashamed to ask questions," that is, students should be open-minded and learn well, and not be afraid to ask for advice from those who are weaker than they are, so that they can continuously improve their abilities and qualities. At the same time, teachers should also set an example by influencing and educating their students with high moral and behavioral examples. The 16th book of the Ji clan records Confucius' views on benevolence and family ethics, as well as his teachings on the relationship between students and teachers. These ideas have had a profound impact on the development of Chinese culture and Confucianism and are still of great significance and value in modern society. The 17th chapter of Zou is a chapter in the Analects that records Confucius' views on benevolence, learning, and cultivation, as well as his teachings on interpersonal relationships. In this chapter, Confucius emphasizes the importance of benevolence and virtue as core values. He believes that benevolence and virtue are fundamental to the governance of the state and society, and that only by influencing and moving people through benevolence and virtue can a stable and harmonious social order be established. Confucius also proposed the principle of "do not do to others what you do not want them to do to you," that is, do not do what you do not want others to do to you. He believed that this moral code could help people establish good interpersonal relationships and social order. In terms of his views on learning and cultivation, Confucius proposed the principle of learning is good for one's career, that is, through continuous learning and improving one's abilities and qualities, one can become a capable and valuable person. He also proposed the middle way, which means to maintain balance and stability in life and not to pursue the extremes too much. Confucius believed that only through continuous improvement in cultivation and learning could one better influence and educate others and contribute to society. In the teaching of interpersonal relationships, Confucius said, "Do not worry about the lack of position, but worry about the reason for standing, that is, do not pursue status and power too much, but pay attention to one's position and role." He also said, "In the way of friends, think twice before you act," which means that you should think twice before you make friends and should not make friends with people rashly. Confucius believed that good interpersonal relationships are based on mutual respect and trust, and that only through good interpersonal relationships can a stable and harmonious social order be established. The 17th chapter of Zou records Confucius' views on benevolence, learning, and cultivation, as well as his teachings on interpersonal relationships. These ideas have had a profound influence on the development of Chinese culture and Confucianism and continue to have great significance and value in modern society. The 18th chapter of Zou is a chapter in the Analects that records Confucius' views on benevolence, politics, and interpersonal relationships, as well as his teachings on leadership. In this chapter, Confucius emphasizes the importance of benevolence and virtue. He argues that benevolence and virtue are fundamental to the governance of the state and society, and that only by influencing and moving people through benevolence and virtue can a stable and harmonious social order be established. He also put forward the principle of "do not do unto others what you would not have them do unto you," that is, do not do what you would not want others to do to you. Confucius believed that this moral code could help people establish good interpersonal relationships and social order. In his view of politics, Confucius put forward the idea that the people are the most important, the state and society are the second most important, and the ruler is the least important, that is, the interests of the people are the most important, the interests of the state and society are the second most important, and the interests of the ruler are the least important. He emphasized that leaders must take into account the interests of the people and must not focus on their own selfish interests and power. Confucius also said, "A gentleman should be concerned with the fundamentals, and when the fundamentals are established, the way is born," that is, leaders must be concerned with the fundamentals in order to build a stable and sustainable political system. In terms of teaching interpersonal relationships, Confucius said, "It is rare to lose one's friends and supporters by one's own actions and words." He also said, "In the way of friends, think twice before you act," which means that you should think twice before you make friends and should not make friends with people rashly. Confucius believed that good interpersonal relationships are based on mutual respect and trust, and that only through good interpersonal relationships can a stable and harmonious social order be established. The 18th book of Wei records Confucius' views on benevolence, politics, and interpersonal relationships, as well as his teachings on leadership. These ideas have had a profound influence on the development of Chinese culture and Confucianism and continue to have great significance and value in modern society. The 19th chapter of the Analects of Confucius is a record of Confucius' views on cultivation, education, and interpersonal relationships, as well as his teachings on the relationship between students and teachers. In this chapter, Confucius emphasizes the importance of cultivation and education. He argues that cultivation improves one's moral quality and character, making one more contagious and influential. Education, on the other hand, is to cultivate and improve one's abilities and qualities so as to make greater contributions to society. Confucius also put forward the educational idea that a gentleman learns by gathering, asks questions by discerning, lives with generosity, and acts with benevolence, which means that a gentleman should focus on accumulating and integrating knowledge, improving thinking skills, and cultivating his emotions and cultivation, as well as putting into practice what he has learned in the moral code. In terms of teaching interpersonal relationships, Confucius proposed that the son should not talk about strange, forceful, confusing, or mysterious topics, which means that in interactions, one should not talk about strange, forceful, confusing, or mysterious topics, but rather focus on communicating and understanding each other's needs and interests in order to establish good interpersonal relationships. He also suggested that there must be a teacher for all three, that is, in life, everyone can be our teacher and we should learn from them with an open mind. At the same time, teachers should also set an example by influencing and educating students with high moral and behavioral examples. In terms of teaching the relationship between students and teachers, Confucius said, "If you have friends from afar, aren't you also happy?" Confucius said, "Even if you meet a friend from a distant place, you should be happy." He believes that students and teachers should establish a good teacher-student relationship, with mutual respect and understanding, in order to better achieve the goals of education and learning. At the same time, students should also learn from their teachers with an open mind to continuously improve their abilities and qualities. The 19th book of Zou records Confucius' views on cultivation, education, and interpersonal relationships, as well as his teachings on the relationship between students and teachers. These ideas have had a profound impact on the development of Chinese culture and Confucianism and continue to have great significance and value in modern society. The 20th chapter of Zou Yun is a chapter in the Analects that records Confucius' assessment of the political system and leadership of the Zou Yun period, as well as his teachings on leadership. In this chapter, Confucius speaks highly of the political system and leadership during the Zou Yun period. He believes that the political system of the Zou Yun period was the way of the world, meaning that the political system was stable, the people lived and worked happily, and the society was harmonious and stable. He also mentioned that Zou Yun were the righteous way of the world, meaning that leaders should be guided by justice and fairness, care about the interests of the people, and build a stable and sustainable political system. In terms of teaching leaders, Confucius said that the people cannot be established without trust, that is, leaders should build good trust relationships based on trust. He believed that leaders should follow the principles of honesty and justice and set an example in order to win the trust and support of the people, thus building a stable and harmonious political system. Confucius also proposed that harmony is important in the use of etiquette, meaning that leaders should focus on harmony and coordination to establish good interpersonal relationships in order to achieve social harmony and stability. In terms of education, Confucius said, "Teach the people to be courteous, and then they can be brave," that is, to cultivate people's manners and qualities through education in order to produce brave and capable people. He also said, "Be agile and good at learning, and do not be ashamed to learn from those who are inferior." Confucius believed that only through education and continuous learning could one improve one's qualities and abilities and make greater contributions to society. The 20th Book of Yao and Shun records Confucius' evaluation of the political system and leadership of the Yao and Shun periods, as well as his teachings to leaders. These ideas have had a profound impact on the development of Chinese culture and Confucianism and continue to have great significance and value in modern society. The Analects of Confucius is an invaluable book and an excellent reference and primer for those who understand Chinese culture and Confucianism. Its rich information, concise and easy to understand, academic authority, and practicality can help readers better understand and grasp the ideas and values in the Analects, and it is also very important for improving readers' language standards, translation skills, moral cultivation, and social cognitive ability.